Welcome to the Psych Gym. Let's hit the weights. Hi, welcome back to the Psych Gym. The last episode I think went a lot better because I had written a lot of things down, and so I did it again. And I'm going to do that going forward. I think that there's something to be said for the personal touch, but there is also something to be said for delivering information in a succinct way. And so I'm trying to work through doing both of those things. I tend to be super casual and I love that about myself. I really do. But at the same time, there's a teaching element that has to come into these podcasts that doesn't always happen when you're just kind of conversational. So, we're going to stick with it. And if it's super weird, tell me. Because I need your feedback. Anyway, obviously, I'm your host, Vanessa, and we are talking about a topic that I believe so deeply that we cannot talk about enough: how men haven't fully learned to express emotions. Ah, ouch, right? I'm not picking on you, man. I'm just, well, you'll hear. You'll hear how I'm not picking on you. It's something that is ingrained in our society, and honestly, a lot of men don't even realize it's a problem until much later in life. Today, we're going to talk about why this happens, how it affects everyone, and the most exciting part, how we can start changing it, how we can help our men out, right? Like, let's help them. So, before we start, I want to acknowledge that this topic is very obviously gendered, and I believe that there are spectrums that are held and felt in this conversation. And so today I'm obviously talking about traditional male gender issues. As an LGBTQ plus ally, I do recognize that there are multiple views of masculinity. I actually believe, though, that these kinds of talks and normalizations help us inch closer to that being more widespread as a belief system, right? Like, so if we talk about this stuff happening more often and how these things, how these traditional gender things are, basically messing with people, and we kind of break through those barriers, I do believe that it actually brings us all closer to, a little bit of a utopia. I mean, I won't live to see the utopia probably, but I'm doing my part to try to get us all there. um, so let's start. Let's start by looking at society's norms and how we got here. We all know that traditionally men have been taught to keep things cool, to be stoic, to be in control. And think about it. When we were kids, how many times did we see little boys being told to like man up or stop crying like a girl? I know I saw that a lot, pretty much everywhere. And I'd be lying if I said that it isn't something I thought for a long time until I started to learn about psychology. And that's the thing, y'all, is when you look back at the things that you learn from the trusted people in your life. And until you know better, you don't know better. You just follow that. And so, like, it's super cringy for me to say that. It's super cringy for me to think that I was once a person who was like, yeah, men shouldn't be like that. Ugh, sorry. I mean, I probably was like 10, but still, sorry from like 10 and under to anybody that I may have spilled that onto. It sucks. Anyways, uh, that toxic ass messaging, it gets reinforced through movies, TV shows, sports. It's all over the place. The idea that showing emotion, especially vulnerable feelings, is somehow a sign of weakness or something that only women do. See, I'm trying. It's like Freudian slip it just wants to insert men in all of these things. That is so deeply embedded in the way that we live our lives. It's when you do the work that I do and you sit down with people, you see how deeply embedded this is. But what's really going on? Why is it so hard for men to express emotion? Well, for what seems like forever, men have been expected to be the providers or the protectors or the strong ones. Emotions were seen as something to be quickly managed, hidden, or even dismissed. And while this is slowly changing, it hasn't disappeared, unfortunately. And as the women's rights movement brings women to places of power in terms of providing and protecting themselves, it's like men are just hanging out there. Like, okay, so exactly what is our role here? I believe, honestly, that the women's independence movement has added an additional layer of trauma for men in the form of identity loss, right? Because we're we are taking on more of the roles that were like super specially theirs. And I say that as a woman, right? Like I hear that and I've heard it in my relationships before, right? Like, well, what do you need me for? Like, well, I don't need you, honestly, right? But hey, like, I'm down for it. If you want to help protect me in a non toxic way, if you want to provide for me in a non toxic way, I'm down for that, right? But I can see the identity crisis. I sit down with the identity crisis, so I get it. So here men are suppressing their emotions because they were taught to. And now it's like half of the world is asking them to be more balanced, be more emotional, be vulnerable, while the other half of the world still seems to want them to be stone hearted statues who are just standing and stoic and nothing bothers me. And I'm so even all the time. And like emotions just bounce right off of me. It's hard for men to feel safe right now. And I can recognize that even if they don't admit it, other than sometimes they do with me in a safe place. So let's kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about what happens when we suppress our emotions. And this is, for everybody, not just for men. I'm not just talking about, feeling sad or angry. I mean all of the emotions, the full spectrum. Fear, anxiety, joy, excitement, love, grief. I mean, you wouldn't think that people need to suppress excitement, but people do it. Trust me on that, in order to, save other people's feelings or whatnot. So suppressing emotions doesn't mean that they're gone. And that's like the biggest lie that I think that everybody's been told, men especially, is like, oh, just don't feel it and you won't feel it. And it's like, interesting. That's not true. It actually means that they get bottled up inside and that weight is carried around without really realizing it. A lot of times people think that once that acute feeling, like the intensity part, is over, that the effect of the feeling is gone too. Unfortunately, that's not true. The trauma of the moment creates a subconscious story that absolutely will come back once again when it's triggered. You know it's true, right? That suppression can lead to serious mental health struggles from those subconscious stories, things like anxiety, depression, anger issues, becoming distant from people around you, feeling an overwhelming sense of frustration or upset that sometimes you can't even really explain. That's because emotions have to go somewhere. Sorry, it's true. Don't be mad at me. It's all over the research if you actually go check it out. I'm not just saying it, it's true. And I mean, for decades, men have been at the top of the suicide list. And it's not a coincidence, y'all. Really. You're not allowed to feel feelings, but your feelings are what make you not want to be on this planet. So why don't we just figure out how to handle that? How do we talk about it? The research shows that this kind of emotional suppression can also lead to physical health issues, blood pressure, heart problems, hormone imbalances, weight gain, just to name a couple. It's not just about how we feel mentally, it's also about how we can physically carry the weight, literally and figuratively, of unexpressed emotion. So, again, like we're seeing a shift over the past decade or so, maybe two. There's been more awareness around mental health, especially for men. It's no longer only considered weak to talk about your feelings. There are more resources than ever to help guys understand that they don't have to bottle things up. But in my opinion, there are still not nearly enough actual resources. As a woman, at any given time, I can access multiple networks of support for my emotional needs. I know where to go for my spiritual needs, physical needs, who can hold space, who can help me rage, who can dance it out with me, like infinite. I know all the emotions, who can process them with me, right? Men do not have all of these avenues. There's therapy and perhaps like a few groups out there, very few. And they're very specific for what you need to go there for. It's still not as common as it needs to be for men to have places to go for all the emotional stuff, right? Whatever that stuff is. It's not just for when you feel overwhelmed, but that's what most of the current resources address, right? So again, like when I talk about where I go to for my spiritual needs, I don't go there when I feel spiritually in trouble, right? It's a maintenance program that I have of knowing, oh, this stuff, like this being able to go to circle and hear and like get some sort of like spiritual medicine on a regular basis is super helpful for me, right? So I know that I can do that, and I do that as a maintenance thing. It's not oh no, I'm freaking out and then I go there, right? And those are the resources that we have for men right now, because it's still not that common for like men to just come to talk about whatever's going on, right? Right? Like to just kind of have a check-in. Oh, let's just have a guys' night and let's just check in. I want that for y'all, but I understand that that is very far in the future. You'll have a guys' night, but what does that usually revolve around for most men? Like drinking and, just stuff that's very surface level, which is okay. It's not to say I don't enjoy that, like going to games and things like that. I'm a hockey player. I do a lot of hanging out with guys, and that's great. But emotionally, right? Like when you're having a tough time or you're having a rough day or you're questioning what you're doing as a parent, like being able to talk about that is important. It really is, because it helps you release the pressure valve repeatedly so it doesn't ever boil over. So right now we have celebrities, athletes, public figures are now starting to open up about their mental health struggles, and it's helpful. More men in the spotlight that are vocal about their challenges with mental health help break the stigma. I personally love watching sports, of course. I love seeing men hug and cry, but I would really love for it to be normal to do that, not just because you won or lost like the Stanley Cup. There's so much in the middle, the normal life stuff that bro hugs and tears can help with, because y'all, go ahead and call The Rock a candy ass for crying. He could still kick your ass. Still a tough guy, still a provider and badass, but also smart enough to know that he is better at all of that when the gunk of negative emotions can move through him better. He creates a clearer channel for his good to come through so he can remain successful at all areas in his life. Despite the progress, the shift is still very slow. It's still hard for a lot of guys to get comfortable with vulnerability. And let's be real, changing something that's been ingrained in any of us for years isn't easy. It's not just men who need to learn how to handle emotions. Women carry a lot of these beliefs about men too. And we need to learn how to handle men's emotions as they figure out this process. One of the things that I've seen that's been pretty toxic is the idea that men need to just figure this out or else, right? And we're not really being soft enough with the idea that these are things that have never been okay for them, ever, ever, ever. These are things that we still have men that if their fathers found out that they were being emotional, they would call them names. This is still happening in 2025. So, as women, I feel like it is such a great time for us to turn on the nurturing in a different way and for men to take our nurturing in a different way, right? It's no longer about us caring for you, it's caring about you with you, if that makes sense. That was just off the cuff and it felt really beautiful. So, let's like let's hang with that. We're going to care with you about you, not just care for you and not just like take your pain from you, but we're going to help you know that it's okay, help you want to do this because it's so good. Men who men who figure this out are freaking unstoppable. Truly. If you are a man who can handle your emotions and not fly off the handle with anger, or not let everything bottle up for so long that you get frustrated and start making mistakes, you become one of the most powerful creatures on this earth, right? Because then you guys have like the physical that like is really tough for us to get. So I don't know. I'm trying to make y'all into superheroes again, or make you feel like superheroes again, because we're asking a lot of you, and I want to be part of helping. And it's funny to say that we're asking a lot of you, because we are, but we aren't. We're asking you to be able to be human because you feel all this stuff anyway. None of this doesn't happen. It's that we don't acknowledge it. So, how do we change this? How do men start learning to express their emotions in healthier ways? Well, first, it's okay to admit that it's tough. It sucks. It feels fucking weird. This is about unlearning a lifetime of habits. When I sit with my male clients, we address this phenomenon often. And even years into counseling, some men are still triggered by certain things we discuss that hit their masculinity button, right? They're like, I can't believe that I'm doing this, And I'm like, well, you are, because you're human. So, like, let's just drop that there. But if you are a guy who feels that you're done repressing emotions, here are a few things that you can try. Start with self-reflection. You do not have to dive into deep conversation right away. Start with yourself alone. Take a few minutes each day to check in with how you're feeling. Are you angry? Are you sad? Are you excited? Maybe you're not even sure. That's okay. The goal is to identify what's going on inside before it builds up. I can send you a feelings wheel graphic, or you can look one up. I do send the feelings wheel. I have it like locked and loaded in my phone for when people are like, I don't know the words. I'm like, here's some. Like, tell me, do you feel encouraged? Is that the word? Right? And speaking of encourage, my encouragement on this is to try to find more specific words. That's where the feelings wheel comes in, because using big blanket words like angry, sad, okay, like they don't really tell you too much about how you actually feel. They're blankets. They're not telling you, specifically, today am I frustrated? Today specifically, am I feeling lonely? Am I feeling ignored? Am I feeling insignificant? Right? That's going to feel different, or that's going to describe a different feeling than just sad, right? Because there's sad, depressed because you didn't get something that you wanted, and then there's sad, feeling insignificant. Not the same sad, y'all. Not the same sad. You can also, if you feel like your self-reflection game is getting real good and you're ready to talk to somebody that you trust. If you have a partner that you're close to, a close friend, or a lovely purple-haired counselor, perhaps you have one of those, start having those real conversations. And I know this can be hard. I mean, I've said it 1,000 times in here. I know that it can be hard. I sit down with men. I know that this is hard. But opening up about small stuff first can help you build your confidence to tackle the bigger emotions in time. Let this be a process. Don't feel like you have to jump in and be like, here's my deepest, darkest traumas. You don't have to do that. Just small stuff, right? Like, today I was so frustrated because I just wanted to get this thing right and I like didn't do it right. Of course, you're not going to talk like that probably, but something like that. Just small things. Start doing that more often. You'd be surprised at how easy it is to talk about hard things when the person in front of you is trusted. Okay. And you're building trust, whether that's, again, with a partner, a close friend, a counselor. The reason why I talk about, therapists and counselors and people like that as super extra helpful is because we are very detached from your life in terms of being involved in it, right? We're just here to help you feel better, to help you move through these things. It doesn't affect our personal lives in any way. The people that are close to you, it might feel like it does affect them. And that's why you don't want to tell them, right? You might not want to tell your partner a deep, dark thing about yourself because you're afraid it might cause something weird in your relationship. And I get that. And you might not ever have to do that. So, but it's important to move through it. So you bring that to somebody who's like me, who I don't, you're not going to ruin my relationship with you because my relationship with you is about this and moving through it. And there's a complete detachment from the judgment and the effect of that bomb that you feel like you're dropping. It helps you drop the shield that you have to hold when you consciously or subconsciously know that what you are about to say is going to affect that person in some way. So, talking to somebody that you trust. Another way that sometimes people like to kind of start to get in touch with their feelings is journaling. Not everybody likes to journal. Not everybody has to journal. A journal isn't like a dear diary all the time. But sometimes speaking out loud feels very intimidating. So you might want to write things down. I am like a huge proponent of burn journaling. It destroys the evidence and you can kind of feel like you're releasing it. Like I love fire, and people who love fire. And so when you throw things in the fire, a lot of times you can feel like the power of that fire. So if you write some things down that suck or that you're working through or that you want to let go of, or traumas that have happened, and you throw that shit in the fire, I mean, right now talking about it, I'm like, I wish there's a fire right now, throw some shit in it, right? It can be really, really helpful. And then you don't have to feel like weird about it. You don't have to feel, oh God, I have a diary. Okay. Because I get it. Again, like we're miles and miles from normalcy in some of these discussions in terms of what's society normal. I also don't want you to discount verbal journaling. Sometimes people will use a voice note or a voice text, to just kind of get used to talking. And then again, it's like burn journaling. You can delete it, but you just want to get used to being in touch with your feelings and talking about them so that you don't have to feel like nobody can ever hear or understand you. And yeah, obviously, I believe in therapy, right? I can't emphasize it enough. If you're struggling, talking to a professional can help, and it's probably going to be better than going to somebody who honestly doesn't understand emotions, even if they mean well. Therapy is for everyone, and it's not just about talking about problems. It's about learning how to manage all of your emotions and understanding yourself better, which in my professional experience, a lot of men don't actually know themselves as well as they think they do, on account of having to hide things from a very, very early age. So early that it literally gets tucked away and forgotten in the everyday conscious mind. I have seen men discover hobbies and new careers even simply by letting that inner child speak, finally. I've seen men for handling the emotions of being an athlete. I see men for handling the emotions of their spouses and being in relationships or starting and maintaining businesses, because there is far more emotional involvement than you can imagine in being an entrepreneur. I also see men simply because they are interested in gaining tools that will help in every part of their lives. Things that nobody ever taught them and they understand are valuable to have in this world. So here's something crucial that I want to leave you with. Vulnerability and openness is not a weakness. It is a strength. Being open about your emotions does not make you less of a man. It makes you more human. It takes courage to say I'm not okay or I'm struggling. And the more men start embracing this, the more we'll see positive change in all the ways. I want to see those numbers of that certain percentage of people who are suicidal. I don't like it. I don't want it to always be men who, I mean, I don't want anybody to be there, if we're being honest. I want that entire number to go down. But when, again, we see the same population over and over and over again, like, I want to help y'all. I want you to understand that does not have to be the way. That's not just the way that it is. Men just are not able to handle their emotions because they're not taught how to handle their emotions. The idea that men need to be stoic and emotionally closed off actually limits your growth. It truly does. Emotions don't have to be scary and overwhelming. They're part of who we are, whether we like it or not. And when we let ourselves experience them fully, we connect better with others, we grow emotionally, and we can be more honest with ourselves and other people. And if you think about it, if you can't handle emotions, are you really that strong? If you're afraid to feel something and talk about it, is that really strength? Or are you actually cowering to your emotions? Yes, I will flat out admit that that was a reverse psychology moment, but it is 100% true. The strongest men on earth are not afraid, right? That's the idea behind it, right? So prove us all wrong and start showing up in all your emotions. One up every man you know by being able to shed tears and talk things out so that you have less stories of losing control to talk about. Be that strong man that isn't afraid of anything that you feel. God, it sounds so good. It feels so great. I'm like stepping into what that can feel like, because I feel it as a person, but I want to feel that as a man who's never been given permission to be like this. So let's wrap up. Just think about your own emotional habits right now. Is there anything you've been pushing down? Or is there somebody, if you're not a man who's listening to this, or if you are a man who's like, no, I'm pretty good, but I was just interested in what you had to say, Vanessa. Is there somebody in your life that might benefit from being encouraged to open up? I mean, again, like, you don't have to be a man for this question to apply. It's really good for all of us to take a pause in our day to check in with ourselves. Truly. We've made a lot of progress, but we're not done yet. Let's continue this conversation outside of this podcast and break the cycle. Men expressing emotions isn't just possible, it's essential. As a woman and a nurturer, I require that a man allows me to see all of him and not hide parts of him. And many women are demanding that as well. It's the highest form of intimacy, and it bonds us in all the ways that are truly amazing. We want that. We're begging you. And we want you to be able to do it in a positive, constructive way, one that actually creates that connectivity. I believe in this so hard. Like, I could go on and on, but I'm not going to go on and on. I'm going to stop now. So thanks for tuning in. If you found today's episode helpful, don't forget to share it, or leave a review, or your own experience wherever you're listening to or watching this. And don't forget to subscribe. And as always, I want to hear your thoughts. So reach out on social media or drop a comment. If it's something that feels sensitive, send me a DM. If you have something that you'd like for me to cover, absolutely send me a message, because I'm always looking for new things to talk about. I want to bring to the people what the people want, not just what I find interesting, because I find everything interesting. I could tell you about all the things I've learned, but you might not want to hear that. So help me out. Hook me up. Tell me some things that you want to talk about. But until next time, take care of yourself. Love y'all. Thanks for listening. To learn more about what I do and how to work with me, head to thepsychgym.com to check it out. Keep lifting, y'all. It's worth it.